Good morning, everyone. On the second day of the Startup Podium, Startup Park, down at Medical Fair Singapore. Welcome to our second session this morning. We have an exciting session this morning. Before we start, just a quick introduction. My name is Muthu. I curate the program for the Startup Podium. This morning, we'll be looking at how technology is changing knowledge sharing in healthcare. So we have great speakers, some from India, some from Thailand today, who share their experience. Some of them teach, some of them practice, some of them are in hospitals, so they will talk about what they're going to do. And this is not a panel discussion as such, it's more a conversation. So we'll have a conversation and things like that. So that's the idea of this. And it's for an hour long. So first of all, what I'd like to do is I go through my screen, wherever whose face I see first, I will ask you to introduce yourself. So I'll start from the back. Sam Metha, I can see you on the right-hand side of my screen. Can you please just give us a quick introduction of yourself?
Yep, I'm, I guess, a combination of a practitioner and investor, and I have the luxury of being a part-time co-owner and institute enterprise leader of one of the older healthcare institutions in India, so Dr. Mehta Hospitals. It was founded in 1933, and we're the steward for the current generation. Just to give you a size of scale, we're about 1 million plus successful deliveries, and we see about 100,000 customers a year. I've invested in about, I think, 14 healthcare startups, including some exits, most notably the home healthcare industry in India. Thank you.
Great. And Ronnie?
Yes. Hi, my name is Dr. Ronnakorn Vaiyavuth. I'm the full-time faculty in Chulalongkorn University, specialized in innovation management and entrepreneurship, innovation ecosystem and stuff. So I've been in the incubator programs. I've been involved in the incubator program for, I think it's around 10 years now. Used to incubate like, I think more than 500 teams, which is some off and some still ongoing now. Yep, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And now to Surat.
For me, right?
Please, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. I'm Dr. Suratan Praveer. I'm brain doctor, the neurologist, and working in the Chiang University Hospital. And I'm being the associate director of the Center for Medical Excellence. In terms of innovation, I am help to setting up, we call the Surat Innovation District, which is the innovation district area for the healthcare system, supported by the National Innovation Agency of Thailand. And in terms of the private sector, I am the founder of one startup. We call it My Migraine application, and to build up the ecosystem of the migraine patients, and the co-founder of the Shiva Care, which is the rehabilitation center. I would call myself like the side startup, which is I start with the being researcher and going to be the startup company.
Okay, and to Sanjay.
Thanks Muthu and Medical Fair Asia for having me. My name is Sanjay Shirwaswa. I come from Mumbai, India. And my background is last 25 years, I essentially just do three things. I build, transform, and scale businesses. And I've done it across various different verticals, going right from greenfield and startups to brownfield, and taking it to a significant scale across the globe. I've had the fortune to create right from scratch 4 industries for building the India to the globe bridge. I did it for financial services, fintech for Standard & Poor's. I did it for internet and telecom infrastructure for the Tata Group. And then last 7 years till August, I was leading the infrastructure business, the integrated cities business for the Mahindra Group. I was the CEO and board director for 2 of the JV platforms with Sumitomo Corporation and with International Finance Corporation. and my background is more of a practitioner's guide, that what do industries, whether it's healthcare, health tech, or any devices, need, what is the right ecosystem and what is the right business requirement for them to really take their core products and services and scale them. And I work with multiple of these companies. I'm also on the advisory board and some of the other companies board. Will be happy to share my learnings. Thanks.
Okay, and so we'll start off. I think we'll start with the doctor first. He can talk about how knowledge sharing has changed in the healthcare in this pandemic time. So maybe Surat, you can start off, and then maybe Sam can pick it up, and we can go from there.
I think obviously what we can see that we are locked down in many countries, and like we have to have like keep distancing from the contact with the other people with the virus, and we have to work from home. So I think what is the fastest advanced technologies that we use now is the telemedicine that convey the method that we connect to the patients. And now in our hospital and many hospitals, I think we use all the telemedicine. In Thailand, I have collected some of the list of the telemedicine that occurred since last March till now. It's around like more than 30 telemedicine service available all the countries. So it's quite very interesting because like the last year there we have some the startup that they use of telemedicine for the service, but now we have like more than 30. The telemedicine can come from many sectors. Maybe from the hospital sector. The hospital can build up the telemedicine service in their hospital, and also the other sector also like for the startup, they also like collecting the doctors and the pharmacists and the healthcare providers into their platform, and the patients can connect to the doctor directly. And the other sector also implement the telemedicine on their service. One is the insurance company. So in Thailand now, nearly every insurance company provide a service to their customer for the telemedicine and teleconsultation, like the add-on service. So the telemedicine is quite interesting. The second one is that change the service of the healthcare system is electronic medical record, which is actually integrated with the telemedicine. Like telemedicine is kind of like talk with the doctors and some the record of the document and the data of the customer, but now integrated into the telemedicine and keep the data privacy. And what I have learned from the youth, as I am one of the startup founder, I built up we call the Smile Migraine application, which is I am built up because I am the headache specialist. So one interesting and challenging is how you can like record and follow up and use some tools to measure the progression of the disease in particular disease. Because for the telemedicine, it's just like by face, or like they implement mostly on just the blood pressure, measure the glucose on the blood, or they record the blood chemistry. But what I interest is how you can implement some the tools that can record some particular disease. For example, for me, I built up one of the system that can track the progression of the migraine, like headache frequency, the days, and the trigger factors like the variation of the pressure and the temperature, and can trigger the patients, and then this data can predict the headache attacks for the next time. So I think this is our experience.
Very good. Now, Sam, your perspective as a hospital, can you what has changed in your doctors sharing their knowledge and so on during this time?
Yes, I think for us, clearly technology acceleration has taken place because necessity trumps like. three simple examples. The first is we had a technology that was being used for chronic care monitoring of customers. A company called Health Sensei that had worked with us to develop a technology that allowed us to do real-time monitoring of some of this tech of a patient, whether it's in their home care setting, whether it's in a hospital setting, in the critical care setting. And what we saw is the moment COVID hit, because clinicians started being a bit more worried about their interaction with potential at-risk customers, because nobody wanted to take a disease and either transfer it to somebody else or take it home. And the virus in its early days was a more dangerous killer in a person's mind. So all of a sudden, Health Sensei went up from the number of active users, I think in my critical care setting, if I just talk about one critical care setting, was about, I think 9 were the daily active users, and it went up to over 60. I'm talking about nursing, doctors, and administrative staff, right? In one critical care setting. And it did that effectively over a period of a week and a half. And this is real-time patient monitoring. So I think number one is all of a sudden clinicians discovered that technology can actually benefit them rather than cost them. That was one. The second big change that took place in my hospital was the capacity for interdisciplinary teamwork increased dramatically. And the logic was simple because there was just so much information in the early days about COVID. Nobody knew what was true. Nobody knew what was not. The amount of time you have in a day to actually absorb that data is quite limited, especially if you're a practitioner. So one of the things that we were able to do really well is have a separate body to the front line that was able to process a lot of this new information and feed the most relevant, accurately fact-checked data back to the person on the front line. And so that's actually 2 learnings in one, which is if you can concentrate up attention, you can actually make multidisciplinary come to life in a very different way than we knew before. But the second one is the amount of fake news that we found out there is not limited to what comes out of an American president's mouth. It actually is much more apparent across the world. So that was the second major takeaway for us. The third one was, I think, exactly what was talked before, which is the amount of specific use case, both by the customer in terms of convenience for an electronic consult, or people who used to want to come to the hospital to check any little thing, now were a lot more scared of coming to the hospital. There was a new barrier in terms of a mental barrier. So all of a sudden, the amount of uptake for us in terms of asking for a patient consult, even a high friction patient consult. So people who did not have an online gateway app, just to use, let's say, Skype or a WhatsApp platform. Not only was the doctor getting better at giving that, I guess, service, but also the process in between got smart very quickly. And the customer demanded it, right? So at the end of the day, I think these 3 combinations made the world of difference. I would say there is a 4th benefit, and that's not a quotable benefit. And that is the government did not come and disturb us in our face, right? And so the government started, especially during COVID for us, to a large extent in India, started enabling and supporting hospitals around the country to give better care, to communicate with each other. And the 5th hidden discussion would be competitors started becoming complementers. We ran out of beds very quickly because our clinical outcomes are legendary. So all of a sudden I ran out of beds. And one of the things that if I really care about my customer, I want to make sure that they survive so that they can see me next winter. And this is not like Game of Thrones where winter comes and the series ends, right? This is one where you will see a new winter if you do the right thing. So from that point of view, I think a lot of people that we considered as competitors became complementers. We still compete on certain things. I think our clinical outcomes is a good thing to compete on, but not for the customer who it's more convenient to go to a hospital nearer them or in a better affordable bracket. Or if they want, say, 8-star service, they should go to an 8-star hospital. They shouldn't come to somebody like us, right? I think that differentiator was there. We are a clinical outcome centric family hospital. We do good what I would call middle income to upper middle income healthcare, and we should continue to do that.
Okay, and now we're going to the professor who's teaching all the time. How do you manage your knowledge sharing? I mean, we are talking about what do you call healthcare here, but still, I think all knowledge sharing has changed. So, how are you coping with that at the university?
Right. I think the point now, like we come to the stage that we're trying to, like, you will see a lot of decentralization of information and data right now. The implementation of blockchain, the smart contract to manage that data privacy and so on. I think this is exactly like Dr. Surat just mentioned earlier. I mean, the knowledge sharing or knowledge transfer in the healthcare industry will focus on, I think, two main things. The first one is to manage the patient data, and the other one is how to make, like, you know, life of the patient like easier through those telemedicines and conference technique and so on. I have seen in my a couple, like, you know, during the COVID-19 that a lot of startup in my incubator programs, they're trying to focus more on, like, you know, a lot of things like has changed, right? So they pivot a lot, a new way of doing the new business models, and the techniques and tools has been, like, you know, implement, like, in several ways. We, like in Thailand, right, in my university, we even have like a telemedicine for animal. So this is a platform for vet and to talk to the patient that cannot, like, you know, really go outside. So I think the from one side, right, to make life easier, this is one of the main goal of the health tech. And I think to emphasize the technologies that can help sharing knowledge is quite important in health tech industry.
Okay, very good. Now, Sanjay, you've been advising startups and also larger organizations in the healthcare sector for the last several years. And right now you're actively working with many of these startups. How do you think they're able to share their knowledge among themselves? I mean, it's probably very difficult for them to meet and so on.
Sure, Muthu. So I'll combine the question which you asked with some of the perspective which the other panelists shared. And I go back to a very simple maxim that everyone has seen the meme that who really led the digital transformation. So it was not the CEO or the CXO, it is actually the COVID-19. So what has happened in the industry and what has happened in the consumer or the patient market, I'll give some data points so it helps us to understand therefore what is the opportunity. So in fact, if I just pick up one example of telemedicine which so many people talked of, in India, in the first 90 days from March to June, 5 crores, 50 million patients actually did telemedicine, out of which teleconsulting, out of which 80% were brand new patients who had never used. So that is the kind of scaling. And once that scale happens, then the opportunity for startups and organizations is you are also getting data, which in turn, as you talked of, you combine the data privacy layer, but even based on the anonymized data and the trends, you can significantly scale and accelerate the product innovation. And I'll just give two examples of how it happened in real life. One is, if you look at the PPE equipment, India was not a big market, but in under 60 days, virtually from nil level of production, it reached a production equivalent to 2 billion Singapore dollars. And that is because the technology was available, the information was available, and therefore people could pivot. And it was not, large majority of it was not done by big conglomerates. It was actually done by MSMEs because they are faster to pivot. And a second example which I would want to give is how a significant number of startups and organizations participated and added to the larger cause of saving lives and as well as generating livelihood, that so many of the startups which had some engineering skills, had the healthcare, health tech understanding and the technology, pivoted quickly to look at new things like, can you create components for ventilators or other medical equipments which were really in short supply. In a normal circumstances, if the technology and the ready access to what are the critical components, if it was not available, a starter working in a healthcare or someone working in an auto ancillary would have never thought that they can actually make a life-saving equipment. So these are the ways in which we are coming in, and maybe as we go later in the discussion, I'll also would want to highlight how this really combines into a fantastic but a significant opportunity for both India and the world.
Okay, I'm going to go back now to Ron and ask and say to him, let's talk about, Sam talked about this mental barrier for patients to now actually do online and so on. How about the students? Because one of the things I recently read on the WHO report, that this is one of the very few years where students haven't gone to school almost a year. So they think when the students go back to school, that's going to create some stress, mental issues, difficulties in coping with other students in class and all. This is what the WHO report says. So do you think you are facing that at the university level too, or is it just maybe younger students? What is your view on that?
I mean, to me, in my universities, right?
Yeah.
My student actually like to do it online rather than do it offline, because I mean, put it this way, as an instructor, right, as a professor, I still prefer a face-to-face, approach, because you can engage with the student better. You can provide appropriate feedback to the right circumstance, much better. But I mean, in terms of convenience and in terms of the adapt, the way students adapt online method into their routine study life, I think they have done it pretty fine. I mean, I think this is because of I think they have already have a mindset of those online stuff, I mean, if you look at social platforms and all those social network communication platform stuff, I think they've been used to these kind of tools and technologies already. So I don't think there is any barrier to I mean, if you look at the satisfactory level of students to join online to compare with offline, I think it doesn't really make any difference. But if you look at the outcome of it, I think I still think that offline interaction can provide much effective and sort of more productivities out of the students in classroom. So in terms of adaptation, I think they have been doing super fine.
Okay, Sam, do you want to take that and as an investor? Because obviously today many of the investments are not able to really have a face-to-face meeting. You need to sort of have Zoom meetings and so on. So how do you sort of think that? How are they picking up? How are they learning? How do they go about things?
Yeah, it's actually much tougher, Muthu. So I think this is all about, so the face-to-face meetings were basically reinforcement cues, whether we wanted to work with these guys, whether they took coachability high. So today, if you only have a singular or a platform that was predominantly video, where you do not have what we call sixth sense and many of the other senses at work, it tends to come down to a few different things. The first is the speed of execution and traction. So if, for example, somebody says that you're going to get your first 100 users in the next month, then we expect 100 plus users, right? If you're still at 10 users...
We're losing you?
Pardon? Muthu? Are the others able to hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we just
No, we lost you a little bit.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the speed of execution becomes a big deal. The consistency of message has always been something we looked at as an investor. So if a person is consistent in their message about what they're chasing, I think that was over a number of different interactions and settings that tends to come up, be aware. So I think especially on an online channel, you're walking into a meeting, you should be at that 10 miles an hour already. You shouldn't be coming at a crawl pace. The investor is probably always on, their time is much shorter. So be respectful of passing the message in a controlled manner. And the third is really simple, it's focus, right? So we want to see people who are incredibly focused around chasing and delivering on a set of opportunities. Now, those are the easy things to measure. There's a whole bunch of stuff that actually we find much harder to measure, which is whether the team is comprehensive, due diligence. And to be honest, I've made more investments over the last 12 months than I have made in any 12-month period prior in my life. And I think a big chunk of that is we're now beginning to depend on other people out there who are giving us opinions about that this person is a good team. So I think having good well-wishers around the place, as well as people who have depth in content. So we made an investment in the what do you call, machine learning space that does AI and more ML, not so much AI. So it's not quite a black box, but for the media companies. And one of the things that pushed us over the edge is we made one introduction with them to ESPN, and a month later they had ESPN as a paying customer, right? And that is speed of execution, one. That is consistency of message, because they sold exactly what they spoke about. And third is it was a team that showed us incredible focus to go and chase this ESPN customer in a record time. So we didn't have to handhold them as much, but it was also a team that learned very fast. They went from never having had an employee in another city to having employees in 5 other cities in different parts of India, as well as rural towns. So they went from seeing the world as a limited time scope to being a more abundant opportunity. And I think that's a company that's tripled revenues in the last 3 months. They are closing the next round of funding while we speak. So I think these are
COVID
examples.
has helped them. COVID has actually helped them.
Absolutely. That's our sense, right? But that being said, I think that's a company that got helped. We have another technology investment, not so much technology, but in an art company, which in the first 6 months of COVID did not have a leg to stand on. They couldn't even make cash flow. And that's a company where sometimes being patient with the right guys also gives you long yield results. And today they have an order book that's much longer than the next 3 years. And they didn't just hit operational annual break even. They are returning capital back to investors. But that was only because they pivoted a few times during COVID, and they had that grit under the bonnet that they could listen to each other. So a lot of mentoring advice we gave them, saying that, you know, art is not an industry that's going to blossom all that easily now. You go either at the very top end where people don't care about the price they're paying, or you work with people who are very price conscious and you give them something that they value. And they listened to both and delivered something for both. And they basically got rid of a lot of their resource time waste around the middle working with art galleries, because no art gallery could sell. Nobody was going to an art gallery. So that's an example where they didn't use much tech, but they did use a lot of common sense. So I think, look, this is all about mentorability is a big deal for investors. It's a very hard thing to evaluate because you have a lot of people who come and pretend that they're mentorable. Muthu, sometimes guys like me as well. It's I think the reality is we are able to see that there are lots of good people, and the world got small very quickly. For what it's worth, I have over the last 6 months I've seen about 800 companies, and I think I don't like seeing more than 10 companies a month. I actually switch off. But because the world got flat all of a sudden with Zoom, we started seeing a lot more companies. In fact, every evening I'm up for a McKinsey number of pitches. And it's the top companies that McKinsey quotes in the world that are pitching. And last night was health tech. And I'll tell you, the quality of pitches I heard was unbelievable, right? It wasn't just because it was McKinsey, but there were people calling in from Poland, from Australia, from parts of Africa that frankly I've never even thought of visiting, right? And all of a sudden I was there going, that's interesting. I'm not sure I'll invest in some of them because they're not in beaten paths that I would travel to. But I'd probably look at the ones that are closer to home, or some in the US where I think there's a marketability.
Okay. Now, my doctor used to tell me, my urologist, I used to always phone him and never go to see him. And he's actually the president of telemedicine. And he used to say, you're the only patient, never comes to the clinic, and you will call me, and I hate doing this. But he's now really doing lots and lots. So we'll ask the doctor, what do you do with that? Now that obviously you can't say no to that. Right?
Actually, for the telemedicine, when I and from the study of the telemedicine, even if they can, some of the telemedicine can replace for the normal practice, but for the long term, it needs to be hybrid. Some of the patient need to come to see a doctor, like because of the art of the practice is to do the conversation, and some of the examination, like cannot be replaced by the telemedicine. Even for the American Medical Association, they evaluate the telemedicine practice and measure the outcome, that the outcome of the telemedicine equal to the face-to-face examination and visit to the doctor. But for the long term, they have not studied yet. As you said, that the WHO, they measure that in some patients or in some like the student that participate in the class, like Dr. Lonnie said, but it depends on individual, like because in some patients who have some of the concern of the mental of their disease and have some like hidden mental problems, if they do not talk to the doctor face by face, it would be have some like the mental issue and the illness, because like talk, touch, like the art of touching and to do the examination, talking together, and also some of the group therapy, it would be still help, because the treat, like just consult and talk to the doctor. But we need the multidisciplinary team, which is very important to like to cope with the illness of the patient. So that I think for the telemedicine can help some way, like to help the patient do not need to come to see the doctor frequently, but can extend the visit, like 2 or 3 months or 6 months to follow up, but still need to come to visit the doctor to talk and to do like to closely follow up with the multidisciplinary team. This is my opinion.
Okay, very good. Sanjay, I have a question. That question actually came from the audience. What are the services you do? So I think they have responded saying they got the answer. So that's cool. I have another one from the audience. Sanjay, you can take this one up. How is COVID-19 impacted the technology healthcare startups?
Sure, Muthu. So as I was speaking earlier, what is really, and you also reinforced the point, that the COVID-19 pandemic has in fact created new opportunities, which is identifying new opportunities, accelerating the product market development, and then companies which also have a good understanding of a technology can actually significantly reduce the time to market. And I think the third advantage, which opportunities which will be there, is with everything going digital. Now suddenly the world, or all the relevant markets in the world, are your target audience. You are not bound by the geography. So if I just pick up 1 or 2 examples, combined with the classic COVID-19 pandemic, because of a significant awareness in healthcare and wellness, suddenly you are also seeing a lot of fitness and other organic foods related startups which are coming in. And while all of us are concerned over a large segment of data privacy, but one way by which people are pushing greater fitness and greater awareness is letting them create a smaller set of communities on their platform. So there are platforms where you and your friends can really register, and only you can see how the others are remaining fit. There were people who were actually doing virtual marathons, virtual ultra runs, and sharing the data, and that was in a way sharing. So that's one way by which you can leverage technology and still create use data in an intelligent way. The second thing which has given a very good opportunity is a lot of technology startups have now used AI and IoT very intelligently to ensure that the healthcare and the health tech delivers much better services. So there are some very simple sensors which are available, and all of them were at a POC because everyone was wanting that can I have a minimum economies of scale. But now because you are more amenability to try, also there is a greater focus. Sam talked of there as you saw the brilliant set of startups which came and we did the cohort last month, that now everyone is willing to invest in a proof of concept, and therefore because the scale and the size has increased, the cost to serve is reducing. And a third and a very big opportunity which I would want to put forth is, if you see multiple countries including like India are using this as an opportunity to leapfrog some of the significant gaps which have been there in the healthcare infrastructure. So India, as we know, itself has launched a national digital health mission, and that mission goes much beyond just talking about a simple digital database. If I really look at it, it has actually come up with 4 opportunities or 4 parts, and each one of them can be significantly served. So the first is, how do you really use it to have data to support the universal health coverage? And that's where there is opportunity for startups to really be the service partners. The second is, while there is some amount of patient healthcare record which has come in, but how do you really synchronize and have a centralized database? So therefore the data and infrastructure services. The fourth is lot of systems, lot of hospitals, but how can you really be a bridge creating a interoperable platform? Because when you create an interoperable or an open standard interface, that's where the network goes. So it goes back to the earlier internet or telecom where everyone had a closed user group or a walled garden. But things really explode when actually we create a open standard interface, and then the network takes a life of its own. We may even have case studies or uses by startups which we have not even thought of. And then the fourth, a lot of investment is coming in, that how can all of this data analytics, real-time information can really be combined to ensure both data privacy and the data security, so that it is not misused. And if you combine all of this, in fact, just the other day I was reading one of the biggest views which is coming in is, if you use this correctly, maybe the next time any vaccine or any pandemic control measures, the time to identify to actually come to the cure, you can actually significantly cut it down by bringing all of this together. In fact, you can do virtual simulations. You don't even need to do actual health or individual related stage trials. So those are the, I think, 4 or 5 big themes I see. Thanks.
Another conversation I think was brought up by Sam as well. Governments have also started to be more relaxed and they're allowing exams to be done online and things like that. So again, this is, what is your view in that? Is that going anywhere or is it just a passing through event? Do you think it's going to stay across? So maybe we can start with Ronnie, who's in that kind of a environment where governments are allowing, exams to be taken online. So do you think this is going to continue to stay? Do you think that it will change? How does the government actually help on this?
Well, to me, right, I mean, back to the COVID-19 pandemic period of time first, right? I think, I mean, with or without COVID-19 pandemic, we're still moving to this, direction anyway. Because see, the thing is, I mean, we create innovation, right, just to make our life easier, achieve the same goal with simpler pattern or quicker, faster, or more convenient, right? I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, and we're gonna reach to the stage that we don't have to do face-to-face any longer. Sooner or later, we will be that. I mean, government also. I think they in Thailand, for in particular, right? I think they also have seen this coming as well. I mean, many of the schemes and regulation and registration is coming up to sort of support the way we're trying to formulate our pattern and become more digitized in this digital world. So I think to me, there's nothing wrong to go back to the face-to-face meetings and stuff, right? And also there's nothing wrong to keep moving toward digitizations and all those online pattern as well. So I think to me it will remain like this. I mean, I think about more of the hybrid system, So I mean, if you have the preferable on do face-to-face, then you do face-to-face. If you want to do online, do it online. I don't think it would have any limitations or restriction from the government side and also from the private side just to contain or either force us to select either one of the choice.
Okay, we have I think that's, I want to take questions on the chat box as well. How can startups expand the customer base during this time? Because they're now not able to do customer visits and so on. Sanjay, do you want to take that up? How would they be able to, expand? What can they do? How will they pick up new customers and so on?
Sure. In fact, that also, it's a great question. And in startups, some of them are struggling, especially if they have to showcase the proof of concepts or even reach out. The good thing is these days a Zoom or a MS Teams meeting has actually become a de facto standard and more acceptable. Earlier, if you were evaluating, you would have said, okay, it seems like an interesting concept, come and show it to me. Now, the time for an amenability to that has reduced. The second thing which many of the startups are doing, and I've been on advisory for some of them, I've seen it, is what they are doing is they are identifying where do they fit into the value chain, and they are intelligently going and trying to partner with some of the established vendor or a OEM which is one level up already in the ecosystem. So in the short term, their profitability may be lower, but it is giving them an access to a channel partner. So they have, for example, a lot of major medical devices and the pharmaceutical companies. They are trying to be innovative. Or say a FMCG company, which is trying to come into sanitizers or any of the other products. If you are able to quickly establish your channel and it gives you a scale, you will quickly learn and your POC becomes that much stronger, and then you go to the other B2B platform. So those two things are really helping the startup. In fact, giving from a personal experience, which I know, is there were two SMEs who were my clients who actually work in medical consumables and other parts of the value chain. Because they were working in an area which was open during the partial lockdown, they remotely reached out very intelligently to new clients whose vendor ecosystems were closed. And because the client ultimately wanted to leverage the short-term pent-up demand, they gave the orders to these smart set of entrepreneurs. So those set of entrepreneurs not just reached out to the client, but during the lockdown managed to expand their revenue by 110%. So I think the other ways we really have to think of innovative ways to capture it, and some of the folks are already doing it.
Okay, Sam, you've actually responded in the chat saying accelerate technology adoption in healthcare, push forward interest by investors to investors in healthcare, made technology a household priority discussion. Of course, public health has come to the forefront, which has never done that over all these years. Even in India, it's become a big thing, and most parts of the world, public health has become important. So can you just expand that a little bit on how learning would fall into that particular? I mean, you're talking about technology adoption there. Is it because people are able to learn, understand better because we are now moving into the online space?
Yeah, I think the way I interpreted the question is clearly the amount of excitement for technology grew up with customers because they needed it, right? If they were scared of a hospital in the early days, they needed it. From a clinician's point of view, their families were stressed, so they needed to find different ways of solving yesterday's problems. So I think they always say necessity is mother of invention, right? So this time necessity was the mother of all technology adoption, is a nicer way of perhaps framing it. The second part is clearly, I think this became, investors just got excited in anything to do with health tech, right? So today, if you have, what do you call, selling a piece of sellotape, what did they do? They took that piece of sellotape, they said for health care, and it sold 5 more of that sellotape. That's the feeling a lot of people got. All of a sudden, manufacturing companies, and many of them, started doing things in trying to be the next medtech company in India to make a ventilator. And I think, therefore, the interest, the excitement for industry to be closer to something that at least perceptively seemed to make more money or have some traction, which was healthcare clearly in the early days, that took place, especially in the earliest days. Of course, many of them haven't stuck. If we're honest about it, never do something unless you're going to do it long term. That's the rule of life on anything. And if you think that way, you'll always do much better. The third one was actually very simple, which is people who didn't know anything about healthcare started pretending they knew things about healthcare, right? I mean, just look at the news every day and you'll see how many politicians have a point of view on stuff that, frankly, they have no context on.
And I have here, maybe Surat, you can say that to the audience, because I don't know whether they can see the chat box. So go ahead. And you're talking about co-creation and so on. Please, that's a very good point, especially in pharma, as you rightly have posted. Please go ahead with that.
Yeah, I think to expand the customer base for your product is, one is because we have now many competition with the other products. And if your product is very special and, like you have to do the whole stack business development, like for the marketing, you have to create some community because of the, if you provide them, because now all the customers, they're interested in to take care of themselves, to have a good health. And if you can, create some communities online, because all the online platform now is very important, and all the customer, they participate on the online. And in terms of the new marketing tools that can deliver online marketing, build up all the big community, and you can get insight into the information of the customer, and then you can do the remarketing into them. So that one, many startups use this method, build up community first, and then provide the solution for them, like they have some rules like 70, 20, and 10. 70 is kind of like for the general knowledge about the not particular on your products, but solve the problem, discuss about the problem. For the another 20 is some particular on the product, but not selling product directly. But for the last 10%, it kind of like provide the benefit of your product for the customer. Secondly, if you can get in the customer who have the real pain to co-creations with your products, even you have some core value of your products, but some like, you know, add on that can serve the customer, because customer sometimes do not come to use your product because of your value, but come to use it because of some feeling, need to be, you know, like involved with the communities. If you have like community in your products that they can, you know, participate with the others customer who have the same pain point. The other one is you can contact with a pharma company, because now, as I know that every pharma company, they built up the innovation unit in their company. If you can, you know, join with them, you know, and provide the value that you have, and, you know, win-win situation with the pharma company. But in that case, you have to build up the community first, because if you all have the data, because all the pharma company, they have the policy that they cannot sell directly to the customer. So that one. And the last point is about the connect to the stakeholder. For example, you don't need to sell your product or to provide your product by yourself. You can connect to the, for example, like the dark store. For example, in my case, I connect the network, that connect the dot into the professional network, like the pharmacy network, like the dark store network, the doctor network. And after that, we provide the tools to the professional network. And the professional network, they use these tools for the customer. And then we can get all the data, the customer in our platform. It's all when combined together, you can build up the community and the customer really huge.
Okay, excellent. Now, before we wrap up, what would be your views and advice for people who are in the game of knowledge sharing? What should they do? Maybe I'll start with Sanjay this time. What would your views, and how would you tell them they can, you know, expand, do better? I think COVID is not been all that bad, because this would have been done in Singapore. I wouldn't have had so many of you coming from all over the world. So there is a benefit, because people are able to come. The cost reduction, if there's a cost reduction, even in India now, IT companies are talking about, as soon as pandemic is over, they're still going to continue to allowing 50% of the workforce to work from home, because infrastructure costs are high. We used to do this many years ago, almost 20 years ago, when I was working with British Telecoms. As London, it was so expensive infrastructure in London, we used to pay them more money to stay at home and work and come into the office once a week. We did this, I think, 20 years ago, because as you know, 20 years ago, London was one of the most expensive places to rent the office space. So we had lots of people working from home. We would actually pay for the doing up of a room, make it a real office. In those days, you didn't have internet like today. You had to actually put in a line and so on for them to connect back to the office. So it still worked out cheaper for doing that than you know, renting a space for them in the heart of London. So what do you think will be the future now that most of us are willing to do this?
Sure, absolutely, Muthu, as you said. So how I would really summarize it is every challenge is an opportunity. So if this is, while there's been, to use the favorite word of the year, unprecedented, it has been an unprecedented challenge, but there are significant opportunities, and how startups as well as the ecosystem of technology and healthcare have to see that now because of the interconnected world, the trends are converging, and therefore the opportunities will lie right at the intersection, possibly just as the logo represents so well. So digital as well as digital healthcare or health tech would really be an enabler, and it will complement the healthcare. It's not going to replace, I think everyone talked of. So when you do a complementary service, the value addition which you do by offering services which are not possible in the physical realm, as well as expanding or doing the value add, that's where you are going to get the value share. So for uh, every single person or the entrepreneurs working in this intersection of this space, even the fact that you can be a vendor and can get embedded into a vendor ecosystem much faster, that is one big opportunity which is there. The other big thing which is coming in is, if you see, research is actually now going to use AI, analytics, and big data. And therefore, classically, if you were a technology company, you would only be pitching with other enterprises or B2B. But now you can, it is a wide new market for AI analytics, which would have not come in. And the third aspect is really about even both digital and physical distribution. So if, as Ron as well as Professor Surat talked of, if there is a need for pharmacies to be evolved, and India, as you know, has just come up with a regulation by which telemedicine prescribed drugs can be now delivered by the online pharmacies. So you have a significant opportunity even in health, combining the digital capabilities and as well as the physical distribution. So even supply chain, to ensure the relevant goods are available, what is the right technology by which you distribute in an intelligent way, so there is no single point of failure. And if that is done, there are three big opportunities coming just from India and building the India to the bridge. One is of India is already world's largest vaccine producer, as well as the pharmacy. Now, because of this disturbance, if other companies are going to move up the chain with APIs, bringing in the medical diagnostic devices, manufacturing into India, a whole set of ecosystem will grow up. And that's why I am very positive that the plethora of opportunities are there to all the startups as well as the companies. I will just say a very simple thing. You really reimagine the future and you remodel your product and services to serve the fast changing needs. The world will be yours.
Very good. Surat, your closing remarks.
I think now we are changing very fast. In the future, we will see the very fast rising up of the platform. Will be the world of the platform that collect the data, because all the data, the big data will be like a gold, you know, and can use just not just use data for the marketing anyway. It can use the data for do we call the precision medicine. In the next future, I think the most important thing is the precision medicine or personalized medicine. In the past, the precision medicine or personalized medicine is focused on the gene, the genetic testing or genetic therapy. But now the personalized medicine is focused on the data. And also the data, the technology also can use for the disease prediction for the gene too. Is kind of the connection between the technology of the big data and the gene development to treat some particular disease. This is the way. The second thing is about the way of thinking. Now, what we have learned from the COVID-19 is everything is possible. You have to prepare. So now the big company, the big fish, they change the mind, that they change the way they think. that they have to prepare using some technology to prepare for the next future, and use the health technology in particular for a better healthcare service. So it's very challenging to see the next coming future for the health tech company and the startup.
Okay, Ron.
All right. Okay. I think just speaking out of the terms of startups, right? I think the best thing for the startups to do is they have to adjust themselves to reality, and the quicker they can adjust themselves to the reality, the better the situation of their startups, and like, you know, increase the customers and all the benefits will come. To me, right? I mean, don't really, like, you know, stick to the plan, like, you know, just too strict to the plan, or just to think that you can plan ahead, like, you know, 10, 20 years, you know, that's not going to happen. What a startup, like, you know, at this moment should do is trying to adjust your business model, be more flexible, all right? Focus more on your value, not your product itself. Focus more on your like, what could be like more value, like what could be a surplus value you can put on the table for your customer, not for your own sake, you know? And then if you have the flexible business model, then you have, like, you know, inject more value into your products and your startups. Then I think the ability to adjust yourself to the reality that you will be increased, like, dramatically, and that will sort of like make your startup survive and become more sustained. Well, sooner or later, right, the other pandemics will come, all right? And I mean, if you don't plan yourself, if you don't, like, loosen up yourself, then I mean, it's gonna hurt you pretty bad. I always talk to my student that is my my quote, that, you know, shit happen and happen all the time, right? So better be prepared, not let it happen to you. That's it.
Sam, final closing remark. We just on time.
I think you've got an opportunity of a lifetime. Make things happen.
Okay, I want to say thank you to my panel, and it's been a very interactive conversation, and we look forward to staying in touch, and hopefully next year we'll go back to Bangkok and in person and have some fun. Okay, and do take care, and we shall all catch up soon. So I thank you so much to the panel. So I'm going to exit the what do you call conversation. So thank you so much. Tomorrow we have another panel where some startups, some companies are coming to talk about how they have gone to virtual care. It's going to be 6 of them, with another colleague of mine will be the moderator. So we'll catch up tomorrow again. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Muthu and Medical Fair. Stay safe, everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.